Do you have mental illness? Well, you're not alone. Today, mental illness affects 1 in 5 Canadians. Mental illness can describe a wide array of various disorders and conditions, including caffeine intoxication, caffeine withdrawal, caffeine-induced anxiety disorder, caffeine-induced sleep disorder, excessive itchiness, agoraphobia, xanthophobia, semiophobia, generalized anxiety disorder, sleep apnea, panic disorder, gamer dementia, anapsychosis, social anxiety disorder, erectile dysfunction, female sexual arousal disorder, video game brain disorder, hyperactive sexual desire disorder, excessive social media use, orgasmic detonation disorder, Funko Pops, premature ejaculation, space madness, and many more. For more information on mental illness, please call 555 5555 5555555555555555555555555555555555555555555555555555555.
I suppose I should start from the beginning. It all started with Action Baz, a generic PS1 game with a silly enough title to justify the $5 price tag. If only I knew what that would lead to. Pretty soon, others would catch my eye. Bass Rise, Bass Landing, Reel Fishing. And before I knew it, that single game became a half dozen. I then asked myself a question that if I had been even remotely aware of what it would lead to, I never would have dared ask it in the first place. Just how many fishing games are there on the PlayStation 1? Surely there can't be that many. The answer is there's about 14 games, and one special fishing rod controller released for the PlayStation 1. At least in North America. In Japan, there's quite a few more, but I don't even want to think about going down that fucking nightmare rabbit hole. It wouldn't take long for the collection to be completed, but I felt no closure, no catharsis. And so my eye wandered. PlayStation 2, Xbox, Wii. God, there's so many games for the fucking Wii. PSP, DS, 3DS, Nintendo, Super Nintendo. And lo and behold, the madness that had started with Action Bass had become quite a bit more. I don't know why I did this. Best I can describe is it was a brief psychosis, or possibly a possession by none other than the foul Dagon himself. The real question is, what the fuck am I gonna do with all these games? Well, that's why we're here today, in what is going to be the first of, well, I'm hesitant to say many, but at least a handful of episodes dedicated to the fishing games of the PlayStation 1. I'm going to go through these in release order. So, first up, we have Big Bass World Championship. Released March 15th, 1997, it was developed by Starfish and published by Hot Beat. In Japan, it was titled Super Black Bass X, the Black Bass being a long-running Japanese series with its first entry releasing in 1984 on the MSX. Hot B was a Japanese developer that originally worked exclusively on Japanese PC platforms. Primarily, they made various RPGs and the Black Bass series. They would migrate over to console games in 1987 and start developing games for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The company would also create an American publishing subsidiary in 1988. Oddly enough, this publishing wing would outlast the main company that would go bankrupt in 1993. After going bankrupt, most of the staff from Hot B Japan would form another company called Starfish. Starfish would then buy up the entirety of Hot B's game catalog, and seemingly, business would resume as usual. In 2005, the company would again split into multiple smaller companies and continue working on different projects. As for Hot B USA, they would go on publishing games until at least 2005, but I'm not sure what happened to them after that. Box art has a nice action shot of the bass. Always love a good fish action shot. We also have an endorsement from American professional bass fisherman Hank Parker. The inside of the case is a bit of a letdown. One of the things I love about PlayStation 1 game packaging is that a lot of them have pictures behind the CD. Not this game though, it's just a black void. The back of the case is also noticeably Spartan, with only a few screenshots plastered on yet another black void. It does promise fish in 3D, along with the term "Go Fish," which I'm unsure if that's a suggestion or an order. The back of the box also has the promise of being able to see through the eyes of a fish, which is intriguing to say the least. Bassin. The game starts you off in the study. The music here ain't all that bad. We gotta enjoy that while it lasts. Here you can choose from tournament or free play, as well as review a list of rods, lures, and even fish. There's no live well, so you don't get to see the 3D models, but there is an impressive amount of information on the fish you can catch, if you're willing to read all of it. Although trying to read a book that's been crushed to PS1 levels of quality isn't ideal. The game also uses a cursor to traverse the menus, which is an odd choice for a PlayStation 1 game. Going to Raccoon Lake for free play lets you control the time of day and gives you the option to observe the fish. Unfortunately, you cannot actually see through the eyes of the fish. You can only hover over the little marks and see a little video that tells you about various bass behaviors in their environment. I really would have liked being able to see through the eyes of a fish as they swim around, but I mean, this is still nice. Now the actual game. God, this fucking music. At least, from my experience, this is the only music theme that plays during the gameplay, and I am not a fan. Thankfully, you can turn it off. This game has Redbook CD audio too, so I can see there are other tracks on the disc, but this is the one they decided to go with. The first tournament will give us a good idea of what kind of creature we're dealing with. So we get the rules and we jump in. First thing we see is this poorly cut out PNG that is our player character, and the boat. This boat is a nightmare. It doesn't have a stop and go button. Instead, you use up and down on the D-pad to throttle up and throttle down until you're at your desired speed. You also have a mini-map and a fish finder on the screen, and trust me, you're gonna need that map. Because this game has one of the worst draw distances I've ever seen on a PS1 game. It's barely a minute into this game, and I feel like I've hit 3 loading screens already. From switching from driving to casting, load. You open the tackle box, load. You hover over another piece of tackle in the tackle box, another load. Switching between above and underwater cameras, oh, you betcha that's a load screen. Where the hell am I, Terror Lake? Now, one thing I've picked up on these games is that you really have to read the fucking manual, because every single one of these bastards does things differently. There are no standards for controls or mechanics here. This is the Wild West. None of these games, not even some of the sequels, share similar control schemes, and all specifically have a different way to set the fucking hook to actually catch the fish, which is incredibly frustrating. When the fish bites, which is represented by the little lure in the corner wiggling, you gotta hold up on the D-pad and then to set the line, and then press square to start reeling it in. So we see our line wiggle, we set our hook, and start reeling in our first fish. Did you notice anything? No? Or maybe, should I say, a lack of something? If you take a look at the top left of the screen, there are now 2 bars under the line length meter. The one on the top is the tension, and the one on the bottom is fish strength. You have successfully set the hook, but you might not know that right away because there's absolutely no fanfare for it. Now, most of these games at least have something when you set the hook. Maybe it's something visual, you see the hook getting set, or maybe you get a splash on the screen saying fish on or something, like a music sting, controller vibration, anything. Here you get nothing. If the fish is on, the 2 bars appear, and then you start reeling in. If that little visual lure in the bottom right starts shaking, it means the hook is coming loose, so you gotta hold up on the D-pad again. And that's it. You basically just hold square until the fish is in the boat. The tension line barely seems to matter. You can't really move the rod around to fight the fish, or like give slack to the line, so you just kind of hold square. As I briefly mentioned before when I was bitching about the loading, is that you can change the cameras to above water and underwater. Most fishing games start you off with the underwater camera as a default, but it is nice to be able to toggle the cameras. That being said, there are 2 glaring issues here. One of which is, of course, the load screen, and the second one is half the time the camera just clips through the ground geometry at the bottom of the lake, and it just completely obscures your view. Like, you can barely see what the hell is going on, let alone the fish, which is incredibly disappointing, because what's the point if I can't appreciate the low-poly fish models? That's like the paramount reason I'm playing these fucking games. To see the fish. Once you get a hold of the fish, you get a little picture of the size, type, and weight of the catch, and which sometimes the game berates you, depending on the catch. Like, fuck you, day job. You think I have a day job? So after catching about 5 or so fish, I check the info screen to see where I place on the ranking. It says I'm currently first, so I assume that means if I turn in now, I'll just win the tournament. Hopefully. Because I really don't expect this game to have any sort of dynamic scoring system or whatever. Oh, I also forgot to mention, all the tournaments are on a timer, so you have from 0700 hours to 1630 hours. And it's not real time, and time moves slow enough where you don't really have to think about it. I think it's used more just to, like, actually simulate fish behavior at certain times a day instead of, a difficulty thing. So the manual says, when you're done fishing, return to the starting dock and choose the dock option, and then you'll be asked if you want to weigh in. So that's exactly what I do. I go to the dock, I hit the dock button, and nothing. It just skips time forward a bit. So it's like, okay, maybe I just have to skip time ahead to when the tournament is over, and then it'll automatically finish. So I do that, and it takes me past 1630. And then it tells me I'll receive a penalty for being on the water past the time limit. What the fuck? How do you want me to turn it in? What do you want me to do? So, after this betrayal, in a sheer display of desperation, or perhaps madness, I attempt to crash my boat into the dock. So, I drive into the dock, accepting my failure, ready to deliver my life into the cold, uncaring hands of this murky lake, and the game asks me if I want to weigh in. I didn't need to select the dock option at all. The manual lied to me, you bastard! So instead of finishing first place, I finish off 16th and fail to qualify for the next tournament. So I do it all again, and actually beat the first 2 tournaments. Oh, just while I'm on this, another quirk of this game is that there's no autosaving. The game doesn't even take you to the save screen after you beat a tournament. It just tells you, hey, you should probably go save. And then you have to go all the way to the options menu and save yourself, which is something I don't think I've ever seen on like a PS1 game. I do like the little save icon for the game in the memory card though. I mean, look at my boy. And it's on the save screen that I notice something that stops me dead in my tracks. It says that saving is only allowed for the first 2 tournaments. So if I'm understanding this correctly, after Tourney 2, I'm going to have to raw dog the last 2 tournaments without saving. And I'm going to be real with you, Chief, that sounds fucking awful. Mind you, I'm playing this on a PS3. Some of these I'll be playing on a PS2, but this one I was playing on a PS3, not a PC emulator, so there are no save states. And I'm not doing that shit. Certainly not with this gameplay. So, I tip my hat to Hank Parker. It looks like he's still the master angler of these waters. As for Big Bass World Championship, overall you can skip this one. The black bass, unfortunately, did not make a graceful transition to 3D. But I know what you all want. You want me to see me crash the boat, so here you go. What the hell? You can't crash this boat at all. This is bullshit. Real Fishing released March 31st, 1998. It was developed by Victor Interactive Software and published by Natsume. Victor Interactive Software was a Japanese developer that was active between 1996 and 2003. They developed games mostly for the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and Game Boy Advance. Aside from the Real Fishing series, they also developed the River King series, which is a series of hybrid RPG fishing games. After going defunct in 2003, they were acquired by Marvelous, which are the devs behind Rune Factory, Harvest Moon, and the Senran Kagura games, among many others. And Natsume you're most likely to know because they published the Harvest Moon and Rune Factory franchises in North America. In Japan, Real Fishing is called Fish Eyes, which honestly I think is much more of an interesting name, and it would probably make this game a lot easier to research because every time I type in Real Fishing into anything, I just get info about actual fishing reels. Real Fishing places you, the player, in an ethereal lodge that exists outside the confines of space and time, where you'll interact with such things as mysterious orbs and the haunted photograph. You'll catch various species of fish across a handful of locations in an attempt to please an eldritch entity known only as the Master Fisherman. To please the Great One, the manual literally calls him the Great One, you must collect a series of orbs gained by offering a communion of various fish species. Will we be able to please the Elder Gods? Will we be able to catch them all? Are we going to be okay? We just don't know. Alright, now let's get a look at this case. My immediate reaction is I love this. After taking some time to mull it over, I can confirm that I love this. You have a 3D render of a single fish. The fish isn't even doing anything. It's just existing. It's in its lane, thriving, moisturized. And just big action movie font for the title. Couldn't you just see like an explosion right behind those letters? I also really like the Natsume logo for some reason. I don't know. I've just always liked it. It's very clean looking. Wonderful. I love it. 10 out of 10. How are we looking on the inside? Perfect. No notes. The back advertises that this is the most incredible and realistic fishing experience ever, along with a few screenshots. Well, we'll just have to see how true this boast rings. The game starts by inviting you into a mysterious lodge. Inside the lodge we have a scoreboard to record our catches, a live well to hold our fish, and the next two spots are kind of strange. The first is some sort of eldritch altar with a series of small circular indents. This is what the game refers to as your fishing license. After completing certain goals on all of the game's levels, you are awarded with a multicolored orb which can be placed in the altar. Once all the orbs of a single color are attained, a new series of goals will become available. There are only 3 different colors of orb, and at the time of my writing, I've only gotten about halfway through the second set. The second oddity is what I can only assume is a haunted photograph, or perhaps a window. It depicts the aforementioned Great One. Making contact with this photo causes the player to hear a voice in their head, which in my experience usually just says you're doing a fine job and nothing else. I can only assume whatever dark forces are trapped within the photo are responsible for us being here, and perhaps appeasing this Great One with a diverse bounty of fish will be the only way we can ever leave. The final curio in this lodge is a book. Opening this book allows us to see various locations we can go and the fish species within them. We can also save and load our game here. There are a total of 7 different fishing spots and 8 different fish species. You can't just fish wherever you want though, at least not at first. We have to unlock each stage by completing a challenge on the map prior. One thing I really liked is that all the information you need to know and how to progress is in the game's manual. You get this big ass list of how many fish you need and where to catch them and how big the fish you need to catch. I miss when games had manuals. Our first stop is the brook, where we have to catch 10 trout. We have a handful of different baits and lures to use, as well as a few different rods. I'm not entirely sure how much changing the baits and lures actually affects your chances, but changing the rod does change how you can fish. You either got bobber fishing or fly fishing. You know, once you get past the cosmic horror of the lodge and our unfortunate reality of being stuck here, the game actually is quite relaxing. We can choose to have pleasant music play in the background or just listen to the sounds of nature. And the act of fishing is very therapeutic, well, at least for now. Real fishing definitely has a vibe going on, and overall, it's a good one. You've got the cozy, if not entirely uncanny, White Lodge to hang out in, as well as a series of pre-rendered bodies of water which give off a very relaxed and laid-back atmosphere. Time does not matter in this place. Let go of your stress and anxiety, for here, there is only fishing. And before you know it, we have 10 trout, and now we can move to the next area. Next up is the stream, where we have to catch a char that is longer than 9.8 inches. Char are cautious creatures, and you can't be too hasty setting the hook. You gotta let them nibble a little bit before you put tension on the line. You know what I honest to God kept thinking about when I was playing this game? And it was the Fire Emblem weapon wheel. You know how like sword beats axes, axes beat lances, and lances beat swords? It's like that simple rock, paper, scissors mentality that I feel best describes the core gameplay loop of real fishing. How it works is, after you hook a fish, it'll swim away. While it's swimming, you don't press any of the buttons, and you just wait for the fish to tire itself out. When it slows down, you press X to reel it in. Sometimes the fish will fight. When it fights, you hold up on the D-pad to tighten the line so the hook doesn't come loose. So you get this kind of similar three-way design. If it swims, you wait. If it fights, you tighten. If it rests, you reel. It makes the gameplay loop really simple to learn, but it can also be deceptively tough depending on what fish you're trying to catch. Our next stop is the creek, and here we'll be catching bitterling. This is also the first map that we can't fly fish. We can only use bait here. These little guys don't seem to be much of a problem at first, but then you learn you have to catch 20 of these little fellas. And this is the first time the game reared its ugly side, where what started as relaxing fishing devolves into a grind. It was also at this point I decided to turn off the music, because while it is soothing, the same loop being played over and over again does become kinda grating. Once we get 20 bitterling, we can move on to the pond. In the pond, we're going to be catching carp. The game also changes things up by giving us a unique type of bait fishing. With the carp, we have to use this big dough ball that slowly disintegrates the longer it's in the water. You have to be patient with these guys, because carp are very weary animals. You try to set the hook too fast and they'll run. If you do it too late, you'll lose the bait. I should talk about how these fish look. Despite enjoying the overall look of this game, the use of 2D sprites instead of 3D models is somewhat disappointing. Although that being said, these fish still have a pretty good amount of charm and personality. There are only 8 species of fish in the game, and unfortunately we don't get any uncommon varieties. But each different species has a different feel and their own unique quirk in how you're supposed to catch them, so it kind of balances out. These are some certified good fish. After catching our carp, we move on to the lake. This level changes things up again and introduces 2 different species of fish. Here we can catch both black bass and bluegill. The level itself only requires us to catch a black bass larger than 15 inches. Luckily, there are certain lures that bass will tend to go for, and certain ones the bluegill will go for. The issue is just getting these damn bass to bite. Eventually, we catch our bass. This seems like as good a place as any to mention that you can put caught fish in your live well and take it back to the lodge with you. Here you can put fish in 1 of 2 tanks and you can check on them and feed them. There's a little info screen that tells you how the fish are feeling. Unfortunately, that's all you can really do. It would be nice if you could have like more populated tanks and if like they swam around and acted a bit more natural, but with how it is, it feels so static. Now is where the problems really start. The next level takes us to a beaver dam to catch cutthroat trout. And these fuckers, I swear, no fish until this point has given me anywhere near as much trouble as these bastards. It is ridiculous how fast you have to be in order to hook these guys. I swear, you have to hit that button within the first couple frames of the splash animation, or your ass ain't getting nothing. It's also in this stage that we're introduced to another of the game's less than flattering mechanics, and that's losing lures. You see, you can snap a line when fighting a fish, and if that happens, you lose the lure that you were using, at least for a little bit. The frustrating part is, I don't know how to get those lures back. They do come back, eventually, but I don't know what triggers it. Like, do I have to catch fish? Do I have to fish in another spot? Do I just have to quit out? I put 10, maybe 15 hours into this game, and I could not reliably figure out how to replace lost lures. And to make it all the worse, you need the brown fly lure to catch these bastards. It's at this point the game it got straight up frustrating. I did not think something so laid back and calm could get me this fucking tilted. But some of these fucking trout got the genuine Modern Warfare 2 lobby treatment. It was fucking miserable. I ended up getting so frustrated with losing my lures, I would just restart the game every time my line broke. And this level has the gall to make you catch 5 trout that are bigger than 9.8 inches. Absolute lunacy. But we persevere. And with the 5 cutthroat trout caught, Jesus, we receive our final orb and make communion with the altar. With our sacrifice complete, we are but one step closer to making contact with the Great One. It's also at this point, the game started to feel like a slot machine, because, at least until we get the final license, there are no new locations, and no new fish to catch. What you basically have to do is you have to go back through all the locations and now catch a certain size of each fish. And it's just completely putting you at the mercy of RNG. I got maybe like halfway through this license before I called it quits. And like I said, I had probably close to 15 hours in this game. But I got like 12 other of these fucking things to do. And it sucks because there is a final level locked behind the third license. It's a dam where you catch salmon. But for the time being, it looks like our ass ain't getting out of this lodge. Overall, Real Fishing is definitely one of the strongest fishing games on the platform. It has a solid design, mostly fun gameplay, good visuals. It's a definite keeper. Yes, Jesus, I know. The fish on the book looks like a penis. I get it. Fisherman's Bait, a bass challenge, was originally released as a standing arcade cabinet in 1998, and was later ported to the PlayStation 1 on February 1st, 1999. It was developed by Konami Computer Entertainment Osaka and published by Konami. Not much on the history side of things this time around. It's Konami, so, they've been making games for a little while. I will say, though, the Japanese title for this series is, and I gotta stand back from the microphone for this, Exciting Bass! Which is such a better name. It's so great. Wouldn't you want to buy a game called Exciting Bass? That almost beats Action Bass. The cover is pretty good. You have a beautiful painted picture of a bass with a big logo on top. It's simple, but aesthetically pleasing. The interior continues the trend, with more nice painted artwork of a little stream and a beautiful mountain range behind it. The back cover has some screenshots and boasts about having DualShock support, 4 lakes with 15 different fishing spots, and a brand new 2-player versus mode not found in the arcade version. Beginning the game, we don't really have any story or linear progression modes here. There's a beginner mode, a practice mode, and standard tournament play, and the 2-player mode. While it's kind of dry, I will say I was pleasantly surprised with the beginner mode. It's something you don't see a lot. Normally these games are more than happy to just kind of throw you to the wolffish and not explain any of their mechanics or how to play it. But this one actually has a really informative tutorial that walks you through every aspect of what you need to do in order to land a fish. Which is ironic considering how simple and straightforward the gameplay is. But I mean, I appreciate the thought. The tournament mode will have you fish 3 different lakes, but before you start proper, you have to qualify by catching a bass of at least 1 pound. After that, each lake has a time limit of 10 minutes, and your top 3 bass for each lake gets summed up into your final score. Each tournament has 3 stages, each at a different lake, and you're free to change the fishing spot at any time. And, I mean, that's about it. An entire playthrough, where, not to brag or anything, I took first place, took me about an hour. The tournament mode is fun, but there was one aspect that kind of drives me up a fucking wall. And that's when arcade home ports keep certain arcade mechanics and don't offer a toggle for them. For this game specifically, what I'm talking about is the time limit. Not the 10-minute time limit though. There's another time limit. How the game works in the arcade is you put your credits in, and then you have between 60 and 300 seconds, depending on what the game is set at, in order to catch fish. Every time you catch a fish, you add seconds to that timer. So you're pressed to catch as many fish as you can in order to keep that timer from not running out. This makes sense for an arcade cabinet. Once the timer runs out, you gotta put more credits in. But for a home release, it's just frustrating. Especially when you consider that each tournament already has a 10-minute timer. A 10-minute timer which you can't even see because the only timer it shows you is the credit timer. I would have much rather had the 10-minute timer on the screen counting down and just do away with the credit timer in general, or at least have an option to turn it off. On the home version, the credit timer just asks you if you want to continue, which is doubly frustrating because having this timer count down is the only way you can actually quit out of a tournament. You cannot go to the pause menu and just quit out. You have to either wait for the time to go down, or you have to reset your console. I can understand why people might want an arcade perfect mode in terms of its rule set for a home release, but this stuff really should be a toggle that you can turn on and off. Since there isn't much in terms of progression, let's just talk about the gameplay. This game here is pure fishing. No boat, no fussing with rods or bait. You pick a lake, you pick a spot, you pick a lure, and then you just throw your line at the shadows in the water. Simple as. Now on paper, how you actually reel the fish in might sound like a goddamn nightmare, because if you're using a DualShock controller, in order to reel in, you have to swirl the right thumbstick. So initially I assumed the worst, and got myself situated with the heel of my palm on the stick, ready for, the fucking nightmare that trying to reel these fish in was going to be. But to my surprise, it actually works really well. You can even go into the menu and change the sensitivity of the stick. It's overall very satisfying using the stick to reel instead of having to mash or hold a face button. It definitely, so far, is the best reeling mechanic I've seen. Everything else is pretty standard. You have to watch your line tension when reeling the fish, and you can move the rod around. You can also release some line if it gets too tight. This, being an arcade game, the fish bite almost instantly and are very easy to hook. These are also some pretty good looking PlayStation 1 fish. I mean, just get a look at these fellas. And you get a lot of chances to appreciate these guys. While reeling the fish in, you often get these action shots with the fish fighting against the line. And I am kind of two minds about this, because on one hand, it breaks up the flow of the fight and kind of takes control away from you. But on the other hand, look at my boy go! We also get a good look at them after the catch on the way in screen. And it doesn't end there, because at any time we can go into the live well and see these bastards whenever we want. And don't let me be mistaken, these are some good-ass fish models. I know we're only 3 games in, but so far, these are peak polygonal fish. We've got multiple species too. We got our largemouth bass, of course. We got snakeheads, catfish, bluegill. And it wouldn't hurt to have a few more species, I suppose, but with the quality of these models, it's hard to be disappointed.
Great fish!
And honestly, I just think this game overall looks really good. The HUD, while being a little busy, is really slick. Unlike the other 2 games we've seen, Fisherman's Bass doesn't use a lot of low-resolution images or pre-rendered backgrounds. It uses a mix of sprite work and 3D assets, so if you're playing on an emulator, or hell, even on original hardware with an upscaler, everything looks super sharp, and it's just really overall good quality. Fisherman's Bait also has what every angler craves. You know what I'm talking about. It's a goddamn announcer.
Good! Oh no. Bluegill. Hit! Largemouth bass. Large.
When you set a hook, land a fish, or snap a line, this guy's gonna let you know, and it's awesome. Well, he might not have the energy of a, let's say, Sega Bass fishing announcer, but he is still doing a pretty damn good job, and I'm thankful he's here doing his thing. He also kind of sounds like Hank Azaria's announcer voice from The Simpsons, so he gets extra points for that.
The ball is turning into a fat, bald guy.
One final thing I really did like, though, and it wasn't even in the game, but it was just an old magazine ad I found. That's a pretty good fucking ad, I'm not gonna lie. I like that. Alrighty, so what's the verdict? Fisherman's Bait, a bass challenge, is very bare bones, and it retains some of the more annoying rules set by the arcade, but it has very good presentation and a hell of a lot of charm. It being the first of 3 Fisherman's Bait games on the platform, I don't really know if I would recommend it, but you could definitely do a lot worse. Overall, I'd say it's a keeper, if not a little bland. Bass Rise released in North America in November of 1999, developed by Bandai Entertainment Company and published by Bandai. In Japan, the game goes by an alternate title, Fishing Freaks, Bass Rise. Again, why is Japan always getting the much better name for these things? Not much history here. The game was developed by BEC, or Bandai Entertainment Company, which was an internal developing house for Bandai that worked on like a ton of games, including stuff like Digimon World and the Evangelion Nintendo 64 game? They made an Evangelion game on the Nintendo 64? The other thing I thought was interesting, well, maybe not interesting, but notable, was this here, Mega Bass. This is plastered on the front right next to the Bandai logo, and at first I thought maybe it was another developer, but apparently Mega Bass is a Japanese outdoor supplies manufacturer, and they must have bankrolled the game's development, because I'm pretty sure every lure in this game is a licensed Mega Bass product. I love this cover. We get a nice action shot of a 3D rendered bass going for a lure, with the big eye-catching font and the logo. A font like this just lets you know that you're going to be in for a good time. The back of the manual is just stark yellow with the Mega Bass branding on it. We're off to a pretty good start here. The interior of the game has a very nice photo of a misty lake with a nice range of trees behind it. It is very serene. The back of the case has the same picture along with some screenshots. It also boasts 12 different levels, hundreds of lures, 3 different types of fish, and describes the game as hyper-realistic. When we boot up the game, we're met with a very Spartan menu. We got New Game, Continue, and Versus Play. We're asked to choose a character. We get to pick a lady or a fella. Can't go wrong with either. I love how smug they both look. They know we're gonna catch fish like mad, and they're ready for it. I also like the sunglasses. We got 2 levels to choose from right off the bat. Lake Kiriyama, which is described as a small lake nearby a tackle shop, and Lake Jacqueline, which is a quiet lake with a small bridge. When we pick a level, the game advertises its real 3D water effects. It also says, "Enter the God's Domain," which is such a strange thing to put on a loading screen and just never elaborate on. Don't get me wrong, it's a hard as fuck line to drop before you send somebody out fishing. I just hope they don't send us back to the lodge. When we load into Lake Kiriyama, we're immediately met by a man who works at the nearby bait shop. This man is going to teach us how to fish. It's pretty simple. After selecting a lure and the weight of your line, you choose where to cast and just start reeling the lure back in. Unlike other fishing games, there is no 3D casting here. You don't get to choose exactly where you want to cast, nor is there a power meter to determine how far the cast goes. Your cursor always goes to the farthest boundary of the level, and you just have to reel it in from there every time. Reeling is pretty simple. It's nowhere near as involved as Fisherman's Bait. You just hold one of the face buttons to start reeling in. Square is a moderate reel, triangle is a fast, and circle is a slow. You can jiggle the lure with the left and right shoulder buttons, and when a fish bites, you press L2 to set the hook. After that, you just have to bring the fish in without breaking the line. This process can be deceptively difficult. These fish just love to really start fighting back at the last minute. I've had fights with fish in this game that lasted well over 5 minutes, but we'll get to that later. I gotta say, this game is right to constantly advertise its water effects because the water here looks fantastic. The sound design is on point too. What you're gonna be hearing most of the time is the sound of the reel and the lure that you're using, but it has that appropriate amount of distortion to sound like it's underwater. You'll also be happy to hear that we indeed have a fish on announcement when you set the hook.
Fish on!
Just as things should be. We catch a few fish and nothing really happens. The bait shop guy doesn't return to talk to us, and we don't have much in terms of objectives. So, let's go try the other spot. Here we get to meet another character who gives us some more tips. After that, it's business as usual. No clear objectives other than catch fish, but no direction or any way to actually progress the game forward. The box said there was 12 levels, but I'm just not seeing how we get to those. There's no help in the manual either, which, in this time around, is incredibly Spartan. It was at this point I took to the internet to find some answers, a walkthrough or maybe just a page of unlockables. And what I found was distressing to say the least, because what I found was absolutely nothing. No walkthroughs, no discussions, no list of unlockables, nothing. Like there was one cheat code to change the music on the main menu. I had to go deeper. I started looking at reviews, magazine articles, previews, anything. And everything I found basically said the same thing. The reviews would talk about the first 2 levels, the water effects, the Spartan presentation, and that's about it. This, my friends, is potentially uncharted internet territory. And that is both concerning and intriguing. Just what is this game hiding? Upon returning to the game, I discover that almost every time you enter a level, there will be somebody there to talk to you, and that person will either give you a quest, or they will just give you hints about large fish in the area, or where to go to speak to people who can give you information on large fish in the area. Completing these quests can get you either a new lure or a new location, but as far as I can tell, most of the quests that appear are just completely random, and that they don't really activate in any sort of progressive way. Now that we've got some momentum, we can get this thing moving. We catch fish, get quests, try out new lures, and unlock more levels. I also come across some more quirks this game has. One thing that threw me for a loop a little bit was that occasionally you'll get a quest where people ask you to catch smalls or larges, and at first I thought they meant like the actual size of the fish, but I think they just mean smallmouth or largemouth bass. They probably explained this at some point, but my dumbass just glazed over it. I also learned that you can hold square to change perspectives on a level. Every level has like 3 different perspectives that give you access to different parts of the level. I also start picking up more on how to better land these fish. Like how hitting the lure off debris in the water, or even hitting it off the bottom of the water, does wonders to attracting the fish to the lure. Which, this is the only game that I've seen so far that incorporates sound into actually catching the fish. You can also occasionally find new lures in the mouths of bass that you catch. One aspect of the game that kind of burns my ass though is that you have no indication on where fish are until you cast. There are no splashes or shadows or bubbles or anything on the water. It's annoying, especially when you get a quest that requires you to catch a fish within like 1 cast. So after about 10 or so hours of playing, I find myself at a bit of an impasse. I've got 8 of the 12 levels unlocked, and the only way to continue seems to be catching a monster bass. That's a bass larger than 30 inches. And as far as I know, this beast only exists in Lake Nishiura. But the big bastard has expertly eluded me for hours now. So, I think this is where I throw in the towel. I understand what we got here, and I think I'm about ready to give my thoughts. Speaking of thoughts, I haven't even spoken about the stars of the show yet, the fish. Unfortunately, there are only 3 types of fish present here: smallmouth and largemouth bass, and bluegill. That being said, the fish do have a lot of personality to them. These are some good models, and you get a lot of time to appreciate them. It's unfortunate that there's no live well, and that we can't see the fish we've caught previously, but overall, I do really enjoy how these fish look. But that's not the end. I can't just leave things here. Not when we were so close. The monster bass is out there. I've seen him out there. I can't let him win. Not like this. So I return to Lake Nishiura and drop my line, and after nearly an hour, he bites. With the lunker on my line and my resolve determined to catch him, what ensues is a nearly 8-minute fight. By far the hardest fight I've encountered yet. Not only in this game, but in all the games I've covered. This monster pushes my 16-pound line to its limits. Rod bent, knuckles white, I'm doing everything to keep this beast on the line. And then, miraculously, I've done it. I've landed the monster of Nishiura Lake. And now, with this victory under my belt, I can use the momentum to go after another. I catch wind of a second monster bass that lurks in a culvert by an old train station off Lake Nishiura. And it's not long before I catch that monster, and then a third. And now I've caught a monster bass in every location they dwell, or so I thought. Upon returning to an earlier level, I'm told that there's an old man that hangs around the Allbarn Canal during the winter, who knows the location of an old ruin in which dwells our final monster. I go there, and the old man says he'll only tell me its location if I best him by bringing in a bigger catch. With luck and momentum on my side, I win out, and the old man tells me his secrets. He tells me of a secret place where the biggest of bass live, Lake Wu Yang. And now, with this, I'm ready to begin the final steps of my journey. And in an act of pure serendipity, or possibly fate, on the very first cast, I hook him, the big one, the monster of Wu Yang. He puts up a valiant fight, but he's no match for me. And after this, I've basked in the victory of my catch, and I'm treated to something unseen by the internet, the credits of Bass Rise. At least that's what I thought at the time. It turns out during my digging, I forgot to check YouTube for a full playthrough, and this guy, at Jordan4Banez, uploaded a full playthrough a couple years ago. Which, yeah, is kind of disappointing that I'm not the first one to do this, but, you know, I'm still proud of myself for actually getting to the end. Alright, so it's time to weigh in. Where does this game stand? Every game so far has had its ups and downs. Championship Bass was a bit of a dumpster fire. Real Fishing is charming as hell, but kinda hampered by its linearity. Fisherman's Bait has interesting gameplay, but is far too sparse and kinda boring. But Bass Rise felt like a fucking video game. This was awesome. I was engaged pretty much the entire time I was playing it. The fishing, while simple, offers a good challenge. There are hundreds of lures to unlock and quests to do. Entering a new level, you never know what you're gonna get. Like, yeah, things could be better handled. Like, maybe having a journal to keep track of quests, or just a way to see how far you're progressing. But I love the idea that this game actually gives you quests and little missions instead of just your standard kind of bass tournament kind of thing. It makes the whole thing feel so much more engaging and like an actual video game. I wanted to see what quests would give me. I was excited to try out new lures I acquired and visit new locations. That's the type of fishing game I want. One that feels like a fun video game while still delivering a genuine feeling fishing experience. Yeah, the game could be a little less cryptic, but fuck was it fun. Also, considering that the entire thing is basically an advertisement for Mega Bass Lures, they did a pretty damn good job on it. I also just want to stress again how fucking good this water looks. Like, the presentation is really good here. So, of course, this game is most definitely a keeper for any 5th gen angler. At Leech Spot? Wait a minute, is that a minor spelling mistake? Oh shit, guys, I think I'm gonna have to rethink this entire thing. Good fish.